Hello and welcome to Chin Cooks Stuff. On this channel, I cook stuff. Cue intro if I had enough footage for an intro, but there isn't one, so. Quick notice, if you're easily offended by swears, best move on and don't bother watching further because I swear a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean a fucking a lot. So, okay, so today's video is a 3-ingredient Chinese roast pork. Now I don't call it Char Siu because Char Siu technically has to be done over a fire. I'm being pedantic, I know. The word Char Siu literally means like roasted on a fork. So, therefore, anything else is just Chinese roast pork. It's not Char Siu. This is basically me testing it out. I am very skeptical about this because as someone who makes Chinese roast pork pretty much once every 3 days for my takeaway, I feel that 3 ingredients isn't enough. Having said that though, it uses ketchup, honey, and hoisin. Hoisin is a big part of, it's not even that big a part actually. But yeah, there is quite a bit of hoisin that goes into Chinese roast pork. The ketchup obviously substitutes the puree. It's got a lot of ingredients in there like garlic, cinnamon, I think it might even have cloves in there, I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, that's gonna have a lot of ingredients in. And then the honey, which I guess is a substitute for the sugar that you would normally use. I hate it when people add honey to Chinese food. I think it's gonna give it that extra like edge because they don't use honey, they use something else called maltose. And it's just that they've been told honey because maltose isn't readily available. It's like the whole sesame oil thing. People, if you know me from Jang's Food Workshop, you will understand my hate for, well, it's not a hate, that's a massive misconception that all Chinese food is cooked with sesame oil. It's not. Sesame oil is a fucking garnish. You put it on a soup or after cooking. You don't fucking cook with it because it has a low burning point and it will taste like diesel if you cook with it. And people go, ooh, well I cook with it, it's fine. Your palate's probably shite. But at the same time, I do preach if it works for you, then it can't be wrong. Just don't tell me that's how Chinese people do it in a takeaway, because they don't. On to the recipe. This recipe first came to my attention from the UK Loves Chinese Takeaway DIY group. I'll put their link below. And I'll put the name of the guy whose recipe this is below. I won't say his name on here just in case they don't want it to be said out loud. But yeah, so who it's from will be below. I found it interesting because I don't see it working, but I could be wrong and I hope I am wrong. But I don't think I will be, but I could be. Right, so all you'll need for this is you're gonna need some pork neck, 3 equal parts of ketchup. I'm using Heinz because it is far superior to anyone else's. Honey, Lee Kum Kee's hoisin sauce. One of the reasons they won't show our video is because I keep pronouncing that wrong. So we made a video for them. They paid us for it. But anyway, that's by the by. I was going to use a 3rd cup, but I think that would be too much. I'm going to use a 1/4 cup of each, I think. It doesn't say amounts, the recipe. Okay, so, really? Fuck off. Okay, so in goes the ketchup. And we'll do the honey. In goes a 1/4 cup of honey. You are going to need some extra honey to glaze it with after you've roasted it in the oven. Why am I doing it like that? Stupid. There we go. When it's all like that, all you do is mix it up. So there it is. I mixed that for about a minute because I wanted to make sure the honey was definitely all mixed in. I'm going to take a quick smell. It doesn't, honestly, it doesn't smell great. It smells like cheap ketchup. If this tastes like Char Siu, I'll be incredibly shocked. In fact, I'm actually looking forward to trying this. But the recipe calls for leaving it for 2 days, so that's what I'm gonna have to do. Obviously in the fridge. Yeah, I'm just gonna cover this, refrigerate it, and I'll see you in 2 days. If this does work, I was gonna say this would be a cool, quick recipe, but if you've gotta leave it 2 days, it's not quick, is it? That's fucking forever. And in fact, if you're gonna take the time to do this, you might as well just make real Chinese roast pork rather than do this. It's a fucking long time to wait, but I am looking forward to trying this. So I've covered it with tin foil and that's gonna sit in the fridge for 2 days. Right, so this pork has now been sitting for 2 days and now there is no real hint of hoisin or honey, it just literally smells of weak ketchup. I'm not gonna put any colouring in this because I don't have any. Well, I do actually, I've got some, yeah, I'm gonna put some colour in it. So I've put some red food colouring into this. We sell the actual Chinese takeaway stuff. This is the stuff here. You can see how red it's gone compared to what it was earlier. Then we sell this on our web store, which is www.chinandchew.com. The link is below. So yeah, you probably don't need the redness. I just thought it'd look nice in the photos for the thumbnails. I thought, fuck it, I'll put it in. But normally, if I'm cooking for myself, like Chinese roast pork, I won't add any. In fact, in our takeaways, I won't add any red colour in. I just don't see the point. So the next phase is the cooking. The recipe says wipe off all of the excess marinade, so I'm guessing it wants to be fairly dry when it goes in the oven. Cook on 180 degrees for 25 minutes and then brush with honey to glaze for a further 5 minutes in the oven after you've glazed them. So that's what we're going to do now. Just lining this with baking paper so it doesn't make the tray go really rubbish. So recipe says to lay it on a rack, so that's exactly what we're going to do. Take the excess off. No, it says you don't want to lay them too close to each other because you will end up steaming the pork, which I don't think is correct, but let's just, what do I know, I've only been cooking all my life professionally. But yeah, let's just go with the recipe. This feels really weird scraping any marinade off something. Normally you'd want to cook it with as much of it on. If anything, if I was going to do this, I might even add a little bit of cornstarch in there so it adheres better. Well, I use potato starch, but most people don't have potato starch. I was about to comment on how nice the colour is, but then I realised I've just added fucking red food colouring. Right, so what I've decided is that I'm going to cook for the way that the recipe calls for. I'm going to cook for the kind of way I would do it and see which one is better. So I am going to just add half teaspoon of potato starch in there. So we're going to preheat the oven to 180 and whack these both in. I'm actually really excited to try this because if it works, it's going to be groundbreaking. I don't know, I've been a bit fucking harsh about it, but that's just because I'm just trying to be super critical, because when you cook for a living like me, when you hear things like, oh, it can be done as just as good or almost as good as what he did say, but I feel like this is going to be far from almost as good. Having said that, like I said, if it is good, I'll be fucking amazed and I will very much champion this recipe. Okay, so we're gonna brush it with honey as the recipe states. I'm not brushing my one with honey. There should be enough honey in the marinade that I left on there to glaze it. I say my recipe, I just mean my variation. I think honey itself is quite a strong flavour, so I don't like to use too much of it. But it says lather it up as much as you can, so that's what I'm doing for this one. Back in the oven. So the recipe calls for this to go back in the oven for another 5 more minutes or until it goes crispy. I'm just going to do 5 minutes. Crispy, I mean caramelizes, so yeah. Okay, so I've taken this pork out of the oven and I am literally going to let it cool down completely to room temperature. The guy who posted this recipe said it's crucial that you do not, and he said do not cut it or eat while it's warm. It has to be served cold, or room temperature really. I actually had to put it in the oven a little bit longer than I thought. It was in there for about 10 minutes, not 5, to get that nice char on the outside. My one is still in the oven cooking, reducing down to have it in a nice thick sauce really. I've never tried this recipe before, I'm just making that up as I go because it's exactly the same as 3 ingredients. I just wanted to do it my way and see what the difference was. And I've never had to wait for Chinese roast pork to cool down for it to taste like Chinese roast pork. When my Chinese roast pork is done hot, it instantly tastes like Chinese roast pork. So that's another thing that makes me a bit dubious about this, because cooling things down sometimes is really important. Like roast duck, for example. If you do Chinese roast duck, you don't let it cool down, the duck flavour is not there. Okay, so one is my glaze and the other is honey glaze. I say my glaze. I cooked it slightly differently. I just basted this in the actual sauce with a little bit of potato starch, and this was the honey glaze. Now, my thinking is this has far more than enough sugar in to glaze rather than the honey, and you can honestly, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but in person they're very different. Like mine are far more glossy. But like I said, same ingredients. There is no extra ingredients I've added. I haven't put even extra anything into that. My method is different, because at the end of the day, cooking is pretty much all about method. Right, so here it is. This is my one. The colour on it, the sheen is far superior. It smells of a lot more than the other one as well. So if you are going to replicate this recipe and it does taste good, do it my way, not this way, because this looks anemic compared to that. But I mean, each their own. I'm really excited to try this. So first, I'm going to try it as it is. Literally nothing added, nothing taken away. And then the second try, I'm going to have with warm or hot steamed rice, fried egg, and some light dark soy sauce, and then see how that works. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna have one more bite. Okay, it tastes really good. I'm not gonna take that away from the guy. This is really nice tasting, but it's very much something that tastes like Chinese roast pork and not Chinese roast pork. It's missing so many flavors. There's a slight hint of spice in there, but it just tastes sweet, really. Tomatoey with a hint of Chinese flavor. It's really nice, but it's not Chinese roast pork. Now I'm going to try my version, which is exactly the same. It's just I've just glazed it differently. Again, it's basically a stronger tasting that, because obviously my glaze is thicker. I tell you what it's a bit like. It's like when a Western supermarket does like a finest range, and then they say, oh, these are Chinese spare ribs. This is what that tastes like. But for the effort, I know it's only 3 ingredients. You've got to wait 2 days for it. But if it's me, I'd rather take the half hour out of my time, bung everything in the pan and make actual Chinese roast pork. Because this is not Chinese roast pork. It's not anything like Chinese roast pork, but it is nice. It's definitely worth giving it a go and seeing for yourselves. But it's missing so much. It's just, there's no... The Chinese roast pork, when you bite into it, should hit you in the fucking face with a load of flavour. This doesn't. It's just sweet. If this was a person, it'd be Tim but dim. Nice but dim. Tim, nice but dim, that's it. So that's as it stands. With rice, let's check that out. Right, so I've actually used the honey glazed one rather than my glazed one, which is literally just using the marinated sauces like I said before to have with the rice and this fried egg here. So let's get on with it. That's interesting. It's with the rice and the egg, it's almost lost its flavour. Maybe I just don't have enough. There is no flavour, it's just sweet. Let me try my one, hold on. So you need to remember when you're cooking with rice, it's like pasta, you need a lot of flavour to get flavour out of it, because there's so much of it, it will just absorb the flavour. Let me have a go at my one, shall we? Even though it's exactly the same. It's twice as good as that one, but it's still lacking completely. It's, like I said, it's really nice. If someone gave this to me, I'd be happy. Actually, I wouldn't be disappointed. I'd be, this is quite nice. If someone gave this to me who's either got my book or got Lynn's book, and they know how to do it, I'd be like, mate, you know that this isn't right, don't you? I'm gonna give this recipe, in terms of time, it's relatively quick. All we'll have to do is cut the meat and add the 3 ingredients and then refrigerate for 2 days. And then you've got like nearly 30 to 40 minutes of the cooking. And then you've got to let it rest. But in that time, I could have made like 20 or 30 batches of actual Chinese roast pork. It just doesn't make sense. I'm gonna give this recipe, I want to say a 5 out of 10, completely standard. It's not bad, but it's not standout. And to be honest, if you've got no classical training whatsoever, it's a fucking good effort. And if you're not raised by Chinese people, or people who know what they're doing, it's a fucking good effort, but it's just not right. Okay, Mum, so what this is, a Chinese roast pork recipe.
Yeah.
Do you want to try it? What do you think?
Not so much flavour though.
No, it's not, is there?
No.
It's
only taste the ketchup on it.
Yeah, it's all it is ketchup, Mum. Hoisin and honey.
Yeah.
They do say it's not Chinese roast pork, but it says it's very, very close, but to me it just tastes like sweet pork.
Yeah, ketchup.
It tastes like, you know, if Sainsbury's or something makes something taste Chinese?
Yeah, the flavour is not in the meat. It's only ketchup flavour, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you like it?
No, I don't think I like it.
Just so, Mum, what temperature is that meat as well? Don't let Toto eat it.
What do you mean now, or what?
Yeah.
Cold?
Yeah, when you're eating it. Is it cold or is it warm?
It's cold.
Yeah, okay. Because the guy who has the recipe says it has to be eaten cold for the flavour to come out, but there's just no... Well, that's Mum's verdict. Right, so I went and got Mum's opinion because I knew there'd be people out there going, well, I don't trust your opinion. I want to hear your Mum's. Well, nip that in the bud, didn't I? She's right fucking there. Yeah, I didn't give her any leading questions. Give her? Sound proper Somerset then, didn't I, muck her? I didn't give her any leading questions, so her decision was totally hers. I just said it was a recipe. I didn't say how many or what ingredients were in it. I just said this is a recipe for Chinese roast pork. Well, you heard it, it was all on camera. Whatever her opinion was, it was all her own opinion. But she did say after off camera, she goes, she didn't like it as Chinese roast pork, but she said it was tasty, but it wasn't Chinese roast pork. So if she was given that and was told it was Chinese roast pork, she would be disappointed. But she said as something else, like if someone said it's a barbecue pork, then she'd be like, yeah, that's okay. Doesn't have much flavour, but it was nice. She also gave it a 5 out of 10. There we go. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe. Commenting really helps, and I hope to do more of these review videos later. My next review video I'm going to do is actually one that Gordon Ramsay reacted to, which was a macaroni cheese. I think it was called Zazz Up Your Microwave Macaroni Cheese, and I wanted to try that recipe and see what it was like myself, because sometimes I feel he just says he hates stuff when he hasn't even tried it, so how would he fucking know? Don't get me wrong, I rate him as a chef. It irritates me when people just are pretentious about food and just refuse to even try it. There we go. Cheers, guys.
You're a weird person.
I'm chin and I cook stuff. Yeah.